Chips's Kawasaki police motorcycles weren't just props on a TV show. These bikes became the most famous law enforcement motorcycles in television history. But they were never actually used by real California Highway Patrol officers. Eric Estrada and Larry Wilcox rode them through 6 seasons of high-speed action. But the story behind these Japanese bikes, posing as American police equipment, involves secrets that even die-hard fans don't know. But why did the real CHP refuse to let the show use their actual Kawasaki motorcycles? How did production destroy over 40 bikes during filming? And what's the truth behind the rumor that Eric Estrada couldn't actually ride a motorcycle when the show started? These are 20 weird facts about CHP's Kawasaki police motorcycles that will blow your mind. Number 20. The real CHP refused to provide their actual motorcycles.
And so we are at my tent.
Chips couldn't use actual California Highway Patrol motorcycles, despite the show being about CHP officers. This seems absurd, but the real CHP had legitimate concerns about liability and public perception. In 1977, when the show began production, the CHP was transitioning from Harley-Davidson motorcycles to Kawasaki KZ-1000P models. This transition was controversial. Many officers and motorcycle enthusiasts believed American police should ride American bikes, not Japanese imports. The CHP was already facing criticism for abandoning Harley-Davidson. They feared a television show depicting their officers in dangerous situations on Kawasaki motorcycles would intensify the backlash. The CHP also worried about liability. If the show depicted unsafe riding, accidents, or violations of proper police procedure, they could face criticism for endorsing such behavior. The CHP insisted that any television production using their name and motorcycles would require complete script approval and technical oversight. The producers found these demands unacceptable, as they needed creative freedom for entertaining action sequences. Negotiations collapsed after 3 months. The solution was creating fictional motorcycles that resembled CHP bikes, but with enough differences to avoid official association. The production company purchased Kawasaki KZ-1000P motorcycles directly from dealers, identical to CHP models mechanically, but without official CHP markings or radio equipment. The bikes were painted in black and white CHP colors and decorated with generic police markings instead of official California Highway Patrol insignia. This allowed the show to look authentic while maintaining independence from the real CHP's restrictions and liability concerns. Number 19. Eric Estrada had never ridden a motorcycle before being cast.
How many times I dropped this baby?
Eric Estrada couldn't ride a motorcycle when he was cast as Officer Frank Poncherello. He'd never sat on a motorcycle in his life, having grown up in New York City where he relied on public transportation. During his audition, Estrada was asked about motorcycle experience. He lied, claiming he'd ridden dirt bikes as a teenager. The producers believed him and offered the role. Estrada had 6 weeks before filming began to learn motorcycle operation. He enrolled in a professional motorcycle training course in Los Angeles, attending classes daily. The instructors quickly realized Estrada had zero experience despite his claims. He couldn't balance the bike, couldn't coordinate clutch and throttle, and couldn't execute basic turns. His natural athleticism helped him progress faster than typical beginners, but 6 weeks wasn't enough time to become proficient. When filming started, Estrada could ride in straight lines at moderate speeds, but struggled with anything more complex. Tight turns, quick stops, and slow speed maneuvering were beyond his abilities. The production hired professional motorcycle stunt riders to handle all challenging riding. Estrada rode only during simple scenes where the bike traveled straight with minimal maneuvering required. Close-up shots showing Estrada's face used a different technique entirely. The motorcycle would be mounted on a hidden trailer towed by a truck. Estrada would sit on the bike, operating the controls, while the trailer provided actual movement. This allowed close-ups of Estrada appearing to ride while requiring no actual motorcycle skills. Wide shots showing complex riding always featured stunt doubles wearing matching uniforms and helmets. Estrada's lack of experience remained a production secret for years until he finally admitted it in later interviews. Number 18. The motorcycles were governed to 60 miles per hour maximum.
I was out of line, okay?
The Chips motorcycles had electronic speed governors installed, limiting maximum velocity to 60 miles per hour. This seems contradictory for a show featuring high-speed chases, but the restriction was an insurance requirement. The production's insurance company analyzed the risks of motorcycle filming and determined that speeds above 60 miles per hour created unacceptable danger levels. Motorcycle accidents increase exponentially in severity above 60 miles per hour. The insurance company mandated speed limiters as a condition of coverage. Kawasaki's technicians installed electronic governors on all production motorcycles. These devices monitored engine RPM and cut ignition when the bike reached 60 miles per hour. The bike would decelerate slightly, then the ignition would restore, creating a pulsing effect that prevented further acceleration. The speed limiters created significant problems for filming chase sequences. 60 miles per hour doesn't look particularly fast on camera, especially on open highways. The production needed to create the illusion of much higher speeds. Cinematographers used several tricks. They undercranked cameras slightly, making motion appear faster when played at normal speed. They used longer camera lenses that compressed perspective, making speeds appear greater. They filmed on narrower roads where 60 miles per hour felt faster due to proximity to obstacles. Sound editors enhanced engine noises, adding high RPM sounds recorded from unrestricted bikes. The combination of techniques created chase sequences that appeared to show bikes traveling at 80 or 90 miles per hour, when actual speeds never exceeded 60. Only a few specialty stunt bikes lacked governors, used exclusively for specific stunts requiring higher speeds. These bikes required special insurance riders and could only be operated by top-tier professional stunt riders with extensive experience. Number 17. The windshields were replaced after every crash scene. The motorcycles' windshields were destroyed and replaced after every single crash or fall during filming. The police-style fairings included large windshields that protected riders from wind but shattered easily in impacts. The windshields were made from polycarbonate plastic, chosen for being lighter and safer than glass. But polycarbonate scratched easily and cracked from any significant impact. Each crash scene, even minor tip-overs, would crack or shatter the windshield. The production kept huge inventories of replacement windshields, storing over 100 spares at any given time. After each crash, technicians would immediately swap the damaged windshield for a fresh one. This process took about 30 minutes per motorcycle. The constant windshield replacements became a major expense. Each windshield cost $75. With multiple crashes per episode, and typically 2 to 4 episodes filming simultaneously, the production replaced 20 to 30 windshields weekly. Annual windshield costs exceeded $60,000, more than some cast members' salaries. Kawasaki eventually offered to supply windshields at cost to reduce expenses. The production also experimented with cheaper aftermarket windshields, but these didn't match the correct police fairing appearance. They tried repairing cracked windshields with polycarbonate welding, but repairs were visible on camera. The only solution was continuous replacement with expensive original equipment windshields. By the show's end, the production had used over 800 replacement windshields. The pile of destroyed windshields behind the prop warehouse became a running joke among crew members. Some damaged windshields were kept as souvenirs, while most were simply discarded as worthless scrap plastic. Number 16. The bikes had special lowered suspensions for camera angles. The motorcycle suspensions were modified to sit lower than stock for better camera angles and easier mounting for actors. Standard Kawasaki KZ-1000P motorcycles sat relatively tall, with seat heights around 32 inches. This created problems for filming. Cameras positioned to capture riders' faces from the side would show excessive amounts of sky and background, with the riders appearing small in the frame. The high seat also made mounting and dismounting awkward for actors wearing duty belts, with equipment that would catch on the seat. The production lowered all motorcycles by 3 inches through suspension modifications. The front forks were shortened internally by removing spacer rings. The rear shocks were replaced with shorter units designed for custom choppers. The lowering transformation improved camera angles dramatically. Riders now sat in better proportion to the frame, with backgrounds positioned more aesthetically. The lower seat made mounting easier, allowing smoother entrances and exits that looked more professional, but the lowered suspension created handling problems. The reduced ground clearance meant the bikes would scrape parts on pavement during hard cornering. The center stands dragged during left turns. The exhaust pipes sparked against asphalt during right turns. The shortened suspension travel meant the bikes bottomed out more easily over bumps, creating jarring impacts. The lowered bikes also handled differently than standard motorcycles. The altered geometry changed steering characteristics, making the bikes less stable at speed and more twitchy during slow-speed maneuvering. Stunt riders had to adapt their techniques to compensate for the modified handling. Several crashes during early filming were directly attributed to the lowered suspension, creating unexpected handling characteristics that caught riders by surprise. Number 15. The radio equipment was completely non-functional.
Trying to replace Estrada, I would only get into trouble with that. But
The motorcycle's police radios, microphones, and communication equipment were entirely fake, incapable of transmitting or receiving anything. Real CHP motorcycles had functioning two-way radios, allowing officers to communicate with dispatch and other units. But installing working radio equipment on the CHP's bikes would have cost thousands of dollars per motorcycle and served no production purpose. The prop department created convincing-looking radio equipment from surplus parts and custom fabrications. The radio boxes mounted on the bikes were empty shells with no internal electronics. The microphones were real surplus police units, but weren't connected to anything. The antennas were decorative metal rods without actual radio function. The elaborate radio setup looked authentic on camera, but was completely non-functional. This created problems during filming. Scenes showing officers using their radios required creative solutions. Close-up shots of actors speaking into microphones would cut to dispatch or other officers without showing the radio actually working. The production relied on editing to create the illusion of radio communication. Sound effects were added in post-production, with radio static and voices mixed in during editing. On set, actors would pantomime radio use, speaking their lines with no actual transmission occurring. The non-functional radios occasionally caused continuity errors. Actors would forget to properly mime pressing transmit buttons or would hold microphones incorrectly. Technical advisors, including former police officers, would notice these mistakes and request reshoots. The fake radios fooled viewers successfully, but frustrated advisors who knew how real police communication equipment should be operated. Number 14. The motorcycles used car tires on the rear wheels. The production motorcycles ran automobile tires on their rear wheels instead of proper motorcycle tires. This dangerous modification was made to reduce tire costs and increase tire life. Motorcycle tires, especially for heavy police bikes, were expensive and wore out quickly under the show's demanding use. A single rear motorcycle tire cost $120 and lasted approximately 1,000 miles. With multiple bikes being ridden hard daily, tire replacement became a significant expense. Someone in the production crew had experience with custom motorcycles and suggested using car tires on the rear wheels. Car tires were cheaper, more durable, and lasted much longer than motorcycle tires. The production team found a car tire that fit the rear motorcycle wheel, a Firestone F560 size from a compact sedan. These tires cost $40 each and lasted over 5,000 miles even under hard use. The savings were substantial, reducing annual tire costs by over $15,000. But car tires aren't designed for motorcycle applications. They have different profile shapes, stiffer sidewalls, and construction that doesn't accommodate the lean angles motorcycles require for cornering. The car tires made the bikes handle strangely, with reduced cornering grip and unpredictable behavior during aggressive riding. Stunt riders complained that bikes with car tires felt unstable and dangerous during action sequences. Several minor crashes were attributed to the car tires' poor motorcycle performance. Despite these safety concerns, the production continued using car tires throughout most of the series' run. The cost savings outweighed the handling compromises in management's view. Only the few bikes reserved for the most demanding stunts retained proper motorcycle tires, while the majority of the fleet ran on inappropriate automobile rubber. Number 13. Larry Wilcox did most of his own riding. Unlike Estrada, Larry Wilcox, who played Officer John Baker, was an accomplished motorcycle rider before being cast and performed most of his own riding throughout the series. Unlike Eric Estrada, Wilcox had extensive motorcycle experience, having ridden dirt bikes and street bikes for years before CHPs. He could handle the heavy police motorcycles competently, executing turns, stops, and moderate speed maneuvers safely. The production capitalized on Wilcox's abilities, having him ride in far more scenes than Estrada. Wide shots showing two officers riding together would typically feature Wilcox actually riding, while Estrada's motorcycle was towed or ridden by a stunt double matched to look like Paunch. This created an interesting dynamic on set. Estrada was the show's breakout star, receiving more fan attention and publicity, despite having far less actual motorcycle screen time. Wilcox, the better rider, did more of the real work but received less recognition. The disparity created some tension between the actors, with Wilcox occasionally resentful that Estrada got credit for motorcycle work Wilcox actually performed. However, Wilcox's skills had limitations. He could handle normal riding but lacked the expertise for dangerous stunts. High-speed chases, jumps, near-crash sequences, and other risky maneuvers still required professional stunt doubles for both actors. Wilcox was realistic about his abilities, never attempting stunts beyond his skill level. His willingness to ride in regular scenes saved production time and money by eliminating the need for stunt doubles in every motorcycle shot. The production estimated that Wilcox's riding abilities saved approximately 2 hours of filming time per episode by reducing the setup and safety preparations required when stunt riders were used. Number 12. The crash helmets were fiberglass shells with no safety rating. The distinctive white helmets worn throughout the series provided zero actual crash protection. They were lightweight fiberglass shells designed purely for appearance, lacking any safety certification or impact-absorbing liner. Real police motorcycle helmets in the 1970s were heavy. Department of Transportation approved units with thick foam liners designed to protect riders in crashes. These helmets weighed over 3 pounds and were uncomfortable during long filming days. The production tried using real helmets initially, but faced multiple problems. The thick foam liners muffled actors' dialogue, requiring extensive sound editing. The heavy helmets caused neck fatigue during all-day filming, and the bulky helmets obscured actors' faces, making it difficult to capture their expressions and reactions. The prop department created custom helmets that looked like police helmets but weighed less than 1 pound each. These fiberglass shells had thin foam padding for comfort but no impact protection whatsoever. They were essentially costume pieces, shaped like helmets. This created serious safety concerns. Anytime actors wore these fake helmets while actually riding, they had zero head protection. A crash or fall could result in severe head injuries or death. The production implemented strict protocols, limiting when actors could ride with fake helmets. Only stationary shots or very low-speed riding under 5 miles per hour permitted the costume helmets. Any actual riding required switching to real, DOT-approved helmets. Stunt riders always wore genuine protective helmets, never the lightweight shells. The costume helmets appeared throughout the series, creating the illusion that officers were properly protected when they actually were wearing decorative shells, offering no safety benefit whatsoever. Number 11. The motorcycles' engines were rebuilt every 6 weeks. The production motorcycles required complete engine rebuilds every 6 weeks due to the extreme stress of filming conditions. Normal Kawasaki KZ-1000 engines were reliable, lasting 50,000 miles or more with routine maintenance. But the filming usage pattern destroyed engines at an astonishing rate. The bikes would idle for hours during setup and between takes, causing overheating and oil breakdown. Then they'd be subjected to full throttle acceleration for brief takes. This pattern of extended idling, followed by hard acceleration, was the worst possible usage for engine longevity. The constant heat cycling caused head gasket failures, warped cylinder heads, and worn piston rings. After approximately 1,000 miles of filming use, the engines would begin showing problems: oil consumption, loss of compression, rough running, and oil leaks. Kawasaki's mechanics established a preventive maintenance schedule, calling for complete engine rebuilds every 6 weeks. Each rebuild involved completely disassembling the engine, inspecting all components, replacing worn parts, and reassembling with fresh gaskets and seals. The rebuilds cost approximately $1,200 per engine and required 3 days of work. With a fleet of 15 motorcycles in rotation, the production was constantly rebuilding engines. At any given time, 2 or 3 bikes would be disassembled for engine work. The constant rebuilds consumed enormous resources but prevented catastrophic engine failures during filming. One unscheduled breakdown could cost thousands in lost production time, making the preventive rebuilds cost-effective despite the expense. By the series' end, some motorcycles had been completely rebuilt over 50 times, essentially making them entirely new bikes, constructed from replacement parts with only the frame remaining original. Number 10. The bikes were repainted every 3 episodes due to scratches. The motorcycle's black and white paint scheme required complete repainting every 3 episodes to maintain a pristine appearance. The constant mounting and dismounting, minor tip-overs during filming, and general handling caused paint scratches and chips that accumulated rapidly. Close-up shots revealed every imperfection, making the bikes look shabby and unprofessional. After 15 days of filming, the average motorcycle would have dozens of visible scratches, paint chips on the tank from belt buckles, scuff marks on fenders from boots, and worn areas where hands gripped repeatedly. The production established a rotating paint schedule. Every 3 weeks, 1/3 of the fleet would go to a custom paint shop for complete refinishing. The bikes were stripped of all accessories, sanded to bare metal, primed, and repainted in the distinctive black and white CHP color scheme. The process took 4 days per bike and cost $350. The frequent repainting meant the motorcycles always looked showroom fresh on camera, but consumed enormous resources. The production spent over $40,000 annually just maintaining paint. Some bikes were repainted over 30 times during the series run. The constant repainting actually damaged the bikes long term, as repeated sanding thinned the metal fuel tanks and fenders. Several tanks developed pinhole rust leaks from being sanded too thin after multiple paint cycles. Number 9. The motorcycles had no actual police equipment installed. The bikes lacked any functional police equipment despite appearing fully equipped on camera. Real CHP motorcycles carried first aid kits, fire extinguishers, traffic cones, flares, citation books, and emergency equipment in specially designed saddlebags and storage compartments. The KIPS bikes had empty saddlebags containing nothing but foam blocks to maintain their shape. The police equipment visible in shots was glued or strapped in place, completely non-functional. The fire extinguishers were empty aluminum shells. The first aid kits were empty boxes. The citation books were blank paper pads. This created problems during scenes requiring officers to actually use equipment. If a script called for John or Ponch to grab a first aid kit, the prop department would quickly install a functional kit moments before filming. After the shot, it would be removed to prevent theft or damage. The permanent installation of real equipment was considered wasteful since it would need constant replacement as items were used or stolen during location filming. The empty saddlebags were lighter than equipment-filled bags, making the bikes easier to handle during stunts. But the lack of actual equipment bothered technical advisors who knew real officers carried substantial gear. The lightweight bikes handled unrealistically compared to fully loaded police motorcycles. Several former CHP officers who consulted on the show commented that the empty bikes were far more maneuverable than actual patrol bikes, making stunts look easier than real police work required. Number 8. Eric Estrada was seriously injured during a stunt gone wrong. Estrada suffered severe injuries during a 1979 filming accident that nearly ended the show. Despite using stunt doubles for most dangerous work, Estrada occasionally performed simple riding scenes himself. During a Season 3 episode, he was riding at moderate speed through a parking lot while cameras filmed from a truck. The scene required Estrada to ride alongside the camera truck, matching its speed. The truck driver accelerated slightly, and Estrada twisted the throttle to keep pace. But Estrada's limited riding skills meant he didn't notice his approach angle was wrong. His front wheel contacted the truck's rear tire at 30 miles per hour. The contact sent Estrada and the motorcycle tumbling. Estrada suffered 2 broken wrists, a fractured collarbone, several cracked ribs, and a severe concussion. He was hospitalized for weeks and unable to ride for months. Production halted completely for 5 weeks, while Estrada recovered enough to film dialogue scenes. The accident investigation revealed that Estrada should never have been riding in that situation. A stunt rider could have performed the scene safely, but Estrada had insisted on riding himself to prove his abilities. The accident proved his limitations tragically. When filming resumed, Estrada never rode motorcycles again during the series. Every shot showing Ponch on a bike used stunt doubles or the towed motorcycle rig. Estrada's injuries were written into the show's plot, with Ponch temporarily assigned to desk duty, then returning with visible caution around motorcycles. Number 7. The bike seats were custom modified for actor comfort. The motorcycle seats were extensively modified from stock configuration to accommodate long filming days. Standard Kawasaki seats were designed for riding, not sitting stationary for hours. The firm padding and narrow profile caused severe discomfort during the extensive waiting between takes. Actors would spend 8 to 10 hours daily sitting on motorcycles during setup, lighting adjustments, and repeated takes. The original seats caused numbness, back pain, and general misery. After 2 weeks of complaints, the production hired a custom upholstery shop to rebuild all seats. The modifications included 3 inches of memory foam padding, wider seat bases, and ergonomic contouring based on each actor's body shape. Estrada's seat was shaped differently than Wilcox's to accommodate their different builds. The custom seats were far more comfortable but looked bulkier than stock seats. They also sat higher, partially negating the lowered suspension modifications. The increased padding raised riders by nearly 2 inches, affecting the carefully planned camera angles. Cinematographers had to readjust framing to compensate. The comfortable seats created a new problem. They weren't designed for actual riding. The soft padding would compress and shift during aggressive maneuvering, causing control problems. Stunt riders refused to use the custom seats, insisting on stock seats for actual riding. This meant constantly swapping seats between stationary filming and action sequences, adding time and complexity to production schedules. Number 6. The motorcycles cost more to maintain than to purchase. Each motorcycle's maintenance costs over the series far exceeded the original purchase price. A new Kawasaki KZ-1000P cost approximately $3,000 in 1977. But maintenance, repairs, modifications, and rebuilds cost an average of $12,000 per bike over 6 seasons. The engine rebuilds alone totaled over $7,000 per motorcycle. Add paintwork, tire replacements, crash repairs, and modification expenses, and the total climbed dramatically. The production's accounting revealed they could have purchased 4 new motorcycles for what they spent maintaining each existing bike. But buying new bikes wouldn't solve the problem, since new bikes would require the same modifications and experience the same maintenance needs. The high maintenance costs were inherent to the filming usage pattern, not the individual motorcycles. Insurance companies analyzing the production costs were shocked by the maintenance expenditures. They'd insured the bikes based on purchase value, not realizing that filming destruction would cost 4 times the bike's worth. Future insurance policies included much higher premiums, reflecting the true cost of motorcycle production work. The expensive maintenance became a cautionary tale in the television industry. Later shows featuring motorcycles studied chips' costs and implemented different strategies. Some used more bikes in rotation to reduce individual bike usage. Others relied more heavily on stationary filming to reduce wear. Chips' expensive maintenance pioneered understanding of how filming conditions destroyed vehicles far faster than normal use. Number 5. The bike's exhaust systems were modified to sound more aggressive. The motorcycle's exhaust systems were replaced with aftermarket performance systems to create a more dramatic sound. Stock Kawasaki exhausts were relatively quiet, designed to meet noise regulations. The production felt the subdued exhaust note made the bike sound weak and unexciting. They wanted a louder, more aggressive sound that would enhance action sequences and make the motorcycles seem more powerful. Custom exhaust fabricators built special systems with minimal baffling, creating loud, deep exhaust notes. The modified exhausts increased sound output by approximately 15 decibels, making the bikes noticeably louder. On camera, the aggressive exhaust sound enhanced the excitement of chase scenes and gave the bikes more presence. But the loud exhausts created serious problems during location filming. Residential neighborhoods complained about the noise. Business districts received disturbance reports. The production faced multiple citations for noise violations during location shoots. They were forced to limit filming hours and avoid certain areas entirely due to noise complaints. The loud exhausts also violated California vehicle codes for noise emissions. The bikes were technically illegal for street use, with the modified exhausts installed. Police occasionally stopped the production during location filming, citing the illegal exhaust systems. The production would explain they were filming a television show and usually received warnings rather than tickets. But the constant police interactions delayed filming and created frustrations. Despite these problems, the production maintained the loud exhausts throughout the series, believing the dramatic sound was worth the complications it created. Number 4. The bikes had hidden crash bars that saved them repeatedly. The motorcycles featured hidden crash bars installed inside the fairing that protected vital components during falls. These crash bars weren't visible on camera but prevented expensive damage during the frequent tipovers and crashes during filming. The bars were custom fabricated from steel tubing, positioned to protect the engine cases, transmission, and other vulnerable components. When the bike fell over, the crash bars contacted the ground first, preventing the engine and bodywork from taking the impact. The hidden crash bars were incredibly effective. A fall that would normally crack engine cases and require expensive repairs would instead result in cosmetic damage only. The crash bars would bend or scrape, but could be straightened or replaced cheaply. This modification saved thousands in repair costs. Without crash bars, each significant fall could cause $2,000 in damage. With crash bars, the same fall might cause $200 in cosmetic repairs. The production estimated crash bars saved over $50,000 in preventing damage during the series run. But the crash bars weren't perfect protection. Severe crashes could overwhelm them, bending the bars into the components they were meant to protect. Several bikes suffered damage despite crash bars when falls occurred at high speeds or odd angles. The bent crash bars themselves sometimes caused problems, rubbing against engine components and requiring immediate replacement before further riding. Despite these limitations, the hidden crash bars were one of the production's smartest modifications, providing invisible protection that dramatically reduced the cost of the show's frequent motorcycle mishaps. Number 3. Larry Wilcox left the show over motorcycle safety disputes. Wilcox's departure after Season 5 was partially caused by ongoing disputes about motorcycle safety standards. Wilcox, being an experienced rider, recognized that many production practices were dangerous and violated proper safety protocols. He repeatedly complained about the speed governors being removed for certain stunts, the use of car tires, the inadequate crash helmets, and the pressure on actors to perform riding beyond their abilities. Wilcox felt the production prioritized dramatic footage over rider safety. He'd witnessed numerous crashes and close calls that could have been prevented with better safety practices. After Estrada's serious accident, Wilcox became more vocal about safety concerns. He demanded that professional stunt riders handle all riding except the most basic shots. He refused to ride any motorcycle that hadn't been safety inspected by an independent mechanic. He insisted on wearing real protective helmets, even when costume helmets were requested. Production management viewed Wilcox's safety demands as difficult and uncooperative behavior. They felt his concerns were overblown and that the existing safety measures were adequate. Tensions escalated throughout Season 5. Wilcox threatened to quit if safety standards weren't improved. Management refused to implement his requested changes. The conflict contributed to Wilcox's decision to leave the show after Season 5. In later interviews, Wilcox stated that he couldn't continue participating in production practices he believed were recklessly endangering cast and crew. His departure highlighted the real dangers behind Chips's exciting motorcycle action that audiences never saw. Number 2. Over 40 motorcycles were destroyed during the series run. The production destroyed or damaged beyond repair over 40 Kawasaki motorcycles during Chip's 6-season run. This staggering number resulted from the constant action sequences, stunts, and crashes required by the show's format. Some bikes were totaled in single catastrophic crashes during ambitious stunts. Others accumulated damage over time until repair costs exceeded replacement costs. The 40 destroyed bikes represented over $120,000 in lost motorcycle value, not including maintenance and modification costs already invested. Kawasaki initially provided bikes at reduced cost for the publicity value, but after the first season, they realized the destructive rate was unsustainable. They began charging full retail price, substantially increasing production costs. The high destruction rate created supply problems. Kawasaki had discontinued the KZ-1000P model by Season 3, making replacement bikes difficult to source. The production company bought used bikes from police departments, private owners, and dealers' remaining inventory. As the bikes became scarcer, prices increased. Early season bikes cost $3,000. By Season 6, finding replacement bikes cost up to $7,000 for used, worn examples. The production maintained a storage yard of destroyed bikes, stripping them for parts to keep remaining bikes operational. This salvage operation recovered usable components, but the accumulation of destroyed motorcycles was sobering. Photos from the storage yard show dozens of twisted, broken motorcycles, crushed fairings, bent frames, destroyed engines. The graveyard of Chip's bikes represented the hidden cost of television action that audiences enjoyed without realizing the destruction behind every exciting scene. Number 1. The last surviving screen-used bike, sold for $78,000. Of the more than 50 motorcycles used during Chip's production, only 3 survived in recognizable condition when the show ended. Most were destroyed during filming, and remaining bikes were stripped for parts or sold as surplus. One of the 3 survivors was kept by a production crew member, one went to a private collector, and the third disappeared into obscurity. In 2014, one of the survivors appeared at auction. It was authenticated as a genuine screen-used bike through production documents and distinctive modifications matching production photographs. The bike had been modified back towards stock configuration by its owner, but retained enough unique features to confirm its Chip's heritage. The auction attracted intense bidding from television memorabilia collectors and motorcycle enthusiasts. The final price reached $78,000, over 25 times the bike's original value. The buyer was a private collector who displayed it in a personal museum alongside other television vehicles. The high price reflected the bike's rarity and cultural significance. Chips had introduced millions of viewers to motorcycle culture and influenced a generation of riders. The show made Kawasaki motorcycles aspirational and helped legitimize Japanese bikes in American law enforcement. The surviving motorcycle represented all of this cultural impact, condensed into one beat-up but beloved machine. It had been crashed, repaired, repainted, rebuilt, and ridden by stunt doubles pretending to be Estrada and Larry Wilcox. It had survived the destruction that claimed 40 of its siblings. And it proved that television props, even heavily used and abused ones, could become priceless artifacts of popular culture. Chips's Kawasaki motorcycles proved that television's coolest cop show required television's most abused bikes. From 40 destroyed machines to hidden crash bars to Estrada's inability to actually ride, these Japanese motorcycles survived stunts that would terrify real officers. Ponch and John didn't just ride motorcycles. They destroyed a fleet creating television history.